There was a little girl in that photograph. Same face, same eaves, same smile. But it wasn't me. And nothing in my life would ever be the same again. My name is Claire Hartwell. I'm 28 years old. I work as a freelance graphic designer out of my apartment in Somerville, Massachusetts, and I've always believed I had a pretty normal life. Average upbringing, decent grades, a mum who made Sunday pot roast without fail, and a grandmother named Ruth who kept butterscotch candies in every pocket she owned. I wasn't someone who walked around with big, unanswered questions about who I was. I thought I knew exactly where I came from. I was wrong. Grandma Ruth passed away in February, 3 days before Valentine's Day. She was 81 and sharp as a tack right up until the end. She left her house to my mum, and my mum asked me to help clear it out. It was one of those old colonials out in Natick. White clapboard siding, creaky floors, the kind of house that smells like cedar and old books. We spent 2 weekends hauling boxes, sorting through decades of accumulated life. I didn't find anything unusual until the 3rd weekend, when I decided to pull up a section of loose floorboard in the back bedroom. I'd noticed it before, a small square of wood that never quite sat flush with the rest. I figured it was just warped timber. It wasn't. It was a wooden box. Dark walnut, smooth on the sides, a little rougher on the top, like someone had sanded it hastily. It had a small brass latch and a combination lock, the kind you see on cheap luggage, 3 digits. I shook it gently. Something shifted inside. Papers, maybe photographs. My heart was already doing something weird, that low thud you get when your body knows something your brain hasn't caught up to yet. I tried the combination, 000. Nothing. I tried Ruth's birth year, 1943. The latch clicked open. I sat there a second before I lifted the lid. And then I wished I hadn't. There must have been 40 photographs inside that box. Every single one showed a little girl who looked exactly like me. Not kind of like me. Not you could be related like me. Exactly like me. Same face, same hair, same gap between the front teeth that I'd had until I was 10. But I had never been to any of those places. I didn't recognize a single room, a single background, a single person standing next to her. She was at a birthday party, pink streamers, a yard I'd never seen. She was in a school hallway holding a spelling bee trophy. She was on a beach, squinting into the sun, laughing. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped half of them. Who was this girl? Why did she look like me? And why had my grandmother hidden these photographs under the floorboards? I had to know. I drove straight to my mom's place in Framingham that night. It's only about 20 minutes from Natick on Route 9. She was in the kitchen when I walked in, pajamas, reading glasses, a mug of chamomile. I didn't say hello. I didn't explain. I just walked over and put the photos on the table, and I watched her face. She picked up the first one. I've seen my mother scared before. The time I crashed her Honda on 190. The day the doctor used the word biopsy. This was different. The blood just left her face, like someone pulled a drain. She set the photo down very carefully. Her hands were doing the same thing mine had done an hour earlier. She whispered, "Where did you find these?" I said, "Under the floorboards in Ruth's back bedroom." She didn't say another word. Not one word. I sat across from her for 40 minutes. She just stared at the wall. I drove home that night with more questions than I had answers, and a sick feeling in my stomach that wasn't going away. I couldn't sleep that night. Or the next night. I pulled my own birth certificate and looked at it like I'd never seen it before. Claire Anne Hartwell. Born March 14th, 1996. St. Elizabeth's Medical Center, Brighton, Massachusetts. Single birth. Mother, Diane Lynn Hartwell. Father, Robert James Hartwell. Everything looked exactly right, but something was pulling at me. Something about those photographs wouldn't let me rest. I filed a records request with the Massachusetts Department of Public Health. Formal, official, tedious. I also called St. Elizabeth's directly and asked if there were any supplemental records attached to my birth. The woman on the phone was polite but firm. She couldn't release medical records without formal authorization. It took 11 days and 3 follow-up calls. When the envelope finally arrived at my apartment, I sat at my kitchen table for 5 full minutes before I opened it. And then I tore it open. Twin birth. Infant A, Infant B. March 14th, 1996. Same day I was born. I read those 2 words so many times the letters stopped making sense. Twin birth. There was another baby in that delivery room. There was another me. I sat at that table until my coffee went stone cold. My mother had never, not once, not in 28 years, mentioned a twin. Not a miscarriage, not a stillbirth, not an adoption. Nothing, just silence. And somewhere out there, Infant B had grown up, and whoever she was, she looked exactly like me. I needed to find her name. I landed at Portland International on a Thursday afternoon and picked up a rental. Silver Chevy Malibu, smelled like pine air freshener. The drive to Bend on Route 97 takes about 3 hours through high desert country. I drove it in almost total silence with the window cracked. I thought about what I'd say. I rehearsed it probably 50 times. Hi, I think we might be sisters. I think we were born on the same day. I think someone separated us. Every version sounded insane. I found a street at around 5 in the afternoon. I sat in the parking lot of a Safeway 2 blocks away for 20 minutes, just breathing. Then I drove to the address. It was a white house, green front door, a wind chime on the porch, a raised garden bed along the front walk with winter kale still growing in it. I sat in the car across the street for another 10 minutes. Then I got out. I walked up that gravel path, and I knocked. I hired an attorney to help me access the full, sealed birth records. It cost me $800 and another 3 weeks. But when it came back, there was a name attached to Infant B. Maya Jean Calloway. The record showed a private adoption, finalized 6 weeks after birth, through a closed agency in Brookline. The adoptive family's last known address, updated through a voluntary registry, was in Bend, Oregon. Bend, Oregon. I had a name. I had a city. I booked a flight on Alaska Airlines for the following Friday out of Logan. My hands were steady when I clicked confirm purchase, but my whole body felt like it was vibrating at a frequency I didn't have a word for. I was going to find her. I had to. The door opened, and I stopped breathing. She had my eyes. My exact eyes, not similar, not close, identical. Same slightly uneven hairline at the left temple. Same way her chin dipped when she was confused. I knew that look because I'd seen it in the mirror 1,000 times. We just stared at each other. I don't know how long we stood there. 10 seconds? 30? A minute? Like looking into a mirror that had lived an entirely different life. She had laugh lines I didn't have. I had a small scar above my left eyebrow from a fall at age 6. She didn't. The same person. 2 separate stories. And then she spoke. Her voice was quieter than I expected. Steady. She said, "I've been waiting for you." I felt my stomach drop. "They told me you were the one who was taken."
Her name was Maya Calloway, and she had known about me for 3 years. She'd done her own search, quietly, carefully, and hit a wall every time. Because someone had sealed the record on my end, deliberately. She handed me a folder she'd kept since the day she found out she was adopted. Inside was a letter. It was written in my grandmother Ruth's handwriting. I recognized every loop and slant of it. Ruth had written it in 2008, addressed to the adoption agency, begging them to ensure the files stayed sealed. She said there had been a family decision at the time of the birth, that one infant had been placed for adoption at the request of the family unit. And then the line that made my blood run cold. Claire was always meant to stay. The separation was final. We ask that it remain so. My grandmother. My family. They hadn't lost Maya. They hadn't been separated by tragedy or circumstance. They had chosen. Someone had made a decision before either of us could speak, before we could know each other existed, that Maya would go and I would stay. And they had kept that secret for 28 years. Maya and I drove back to Massachusetts together a week later. We took turns behind the wheel on the I-84 stretch through Idaho, trading gas station coffee and stories. She'd grown up in Bend. She was a nurse at a hospital there. She had a dog named Copper and a subscription to the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. She laughed the way I laughed, sudden and loud and a little undignified. We called each other the other one when we didn't know what else to say. I called my mum and told her I was coming home. I told her I wasn't coming alone. The silence on the phone was the longest 10 seconds of my life. When Diane opened that door and saw us both standing there, same face, side by side, she made a sound I'd never heard from her before. Not quite a gasp, not quite a cry, something between the two. She sat down on the porch steps and didn't get up for a long time. And slowly, between tears and trembling and pauses that stretched out like winter highways, she told us everything. There had been financial pressure, a grandmother's fear, a decision that felt practical at the time and haunted her every single day since. There was no clean version of the truth. There never is. But it was the truth. And for the first time in 28 years, it was finally out in the open air. People ask me if I'm angry. Honestly, some days I am. Some days I look at Maya and feel a grief I don't have a name for. All the birthdays we didn't share. All the years we spent being strangers to each other. But I also look at her and feel something I never expected. Relief. Like a door finally opened in a room I'd been locked out of my whole life. Maya is in Boston now. She transferred to a nursing position at Mass General and rented an apartment in Charleston, about 4 miles from me. We have coffee every Sunday morning at this small place on Cambridge Street that does a really good breakfast sandwich. We're still figuring out what we are to each other. Sisters? Strangers? Something that doesn't have a word yet. My mother is in therapy. It's hard. It's slow. But she's trying. And Grandma Ruth's box,
That locked walnut box under the floorboards. I kept it. It sits on my bookshelf now. Not because what was hidden inside of it was good, but because the truth, no matter how long it's buried, always finds a way up. And sometimes, the most important thing you can do is be willing to pry up the floorboards. If this story moved you, if it made you think about the people you love, the secrets we carry, and the reunions that change everything, hit that like button and subscribe. We have new stories every week that you don't want to miss. There's another story waiting for you right now. A woman who searched for 20 years to find the daughter she was forced to give up. Click the video on your screen to hear what happened when they finally met.